Recording. Right. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for turning out on this very beautiful Friday morning. Just to say firstly that this, oh heavens, sorry, I need to show you my slide.
You need me to stop sharing?
Yeah, I'm going to share this for a sec, yeah. Right, good morning, everybody. So welcome to this knowledge share. It's been, so first of all, Ramona will be presenting, but it's been kindly sponsored by Yasna.ai. It's the AI-powered platform that helps independent researchers, consultants, and research agencies scale in-depth interviews. Claim your free 14 days Yasna Pro free trial today. Conduct up to 50 interviews worth €100 and sign up at yasna.ai. And many thanks to Ramona Daniels, our speaker today. She's a cultural insights and research strategy consultant with over 25 years of experience at leading global agencies, including Ipsos, Cantor, and across the WPP network. She specializes in helping businesses decode cultural shifts, optimize research process for greater efficiencies, and upskill teams, particularly at the intersection of traditional research methodologies and AI-driven analytics tools. I'm sure we're all looking forward to hearing what she's got to say. So without any more ado, over to you, Ramona.
Fantastic. And thank you for that introduction. It's almost like I've written it myself. All right.
Before you start, sorry, can I say, please, can you put yourselves on mute for the moment? If you've got any questions, Ramona, would you like to take questions as we go, or shall we wait till the end?
Let's see how they're coming up and if they're fitting in. And otherwise, okay. I've got the chat window open, so I can just keep an eye on it. But thanks for checking on that.
Yeah, do put your chats in. Sorry, do put your questions in the chat, please, as well. Okay, thank you very much, Ramona.
Fantastic. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this knowledge share on the foundations of product design. The goal for today is to give you the tools to write better prompts using Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and others, just based on my own experience. This will not magically fix all your frustrations, hallucinations, but it will get you a step closer. So let's get straight into it. Here we have a selection of popular AI assistants. And I would love if you tell us in the chat which of these or others you have already tried. So if you could put it in, that will just give me an idea of where you already are in your AI journey. It's always interesting to see which ones people are gravitating to, because they all work in similar ways under the hood. Large language models, or LLMs, are the AI models powering the popular assistants you see listed here. When you interact with these tools, you're essentially communicating with sophisticated pattern matching systems that have been trained on vast amounts of text data. Which one of them you're using is really down to your own personal preferences. I tend to toggle between some of them, as I find that some are better at performing different tasks. So, for example, ChatGPT could be better at helping with coding, while Claude could be better at writing. These prompts that we'll be writing today can be used in any of these. And I can see you all have a wonderful array. Somebody mentioned Jaspers as well, which is one of the lesser used, but interesting to explore. Right, fantastic. So before we write a single prompt, we need to understand a little bit better how these AI systems work. Now, let's address a common misconception. Despite their impressive capabilities, AI is not sentient or intelligent in a human sense. Large language models are sophisticated prediction machines that excel at pattern recognition, but struggle with tasks that seem simple to us. The percentages that are shown here are from an interesting new paper that showed that even the most advanced current models all struggle when reading analog clocks and calendars. These models don't actually reason or calculate. They predict. For example, they don't understand how clock hands work. They just recognize patterns they have seen before. To write an effective prompt, we need to understand how large language models process language. When you submit a prompt, the AI breaks it down into tokens. So these are the fundamental units that it works with. And let me show you how this works with an example. Looking at the prompt, please write a clear and concise summary of Gen Z customer behavior in B2B markets. Not all words carry equal weight. The AI reads this as individual tokens, and some are far more important than others. Words like right, concise, summary, behavior, and markets are doing the heavy lifting here. They tell the model what kind of output you want, how it should sound, and what it should focus on. Meanwhile, connecting words like and, in, and punctuation help structure the sentence, but don't actually provide any guidance for prediction. Tokens are not always full words. Gen Z and B2B are split into multiple tokens. Now, you don't need to worry about how AI model splits text into tokens, but it helps you understand how differently the AI thinks. This token-based processing is why precision in our language matters so much when designing prompts. Here's an example of how prediction works. When given the prompt, the actress that played Rose in the 1997 film Titanic is named, the AI calculates probabilities for the next word. The AI has not watched the film. It does not look at IMDb or Wikipedia. It takes the word with the highest probability from its training data. In this example, Kate has 65% probability, while other names have much lower chances. It's a bit like predictive text, but at a scale. The model guesses the most likely word one at a time, based on what it's seen before. This probabilistic approach explains both the AI capabilities and its limitation. It's not accessing a database of facts. It's making educated predictions based on patterns it learned during training. It also explains why the output you get can be very average, vanilla, middle of the road. To make a game show analogy here, it's more like Family Feud rather than pointless. Multiple words often have similar probability, which explain why the same prompt can produce different results on different occasions.
It's about AI prompts for researchers.
Yes, any prompt, not just for research. A common pitfall are vague, buzzword-heavy prompts. In this example, the prompt is summarize the quantum marketing preferences of Gen Z across AI-influenced B2B pathways in the metaverse. Whatever that means, it sounds impressive, but it's just a mashup of jargon that confuses the AI more than it helps. And it forces it down rarely used paths in the training data. So when you use a vague prompt, the model will struggle to find strong patterns, and it will end up stitching together phrases that don't really belong together. And that's leading to those dreaded hallucinations. So the first step is actually being clear in your own head what you want so that you don't fall into this trap. And this brings us to the fundamental principle of AI prompt design: garbage in, garbage out. The quality of your prompt directly dictates the quality of the output you get. If your prompt is vague, contradictory, or poorly structured, that will show in your output. This isn't a limitation unique to AI. It's true of any systems. Anyone who ever worked with a computer will find that. But it's particularly crucial here because of how these models work and what data it's been trained with. Oh, now that we looked at some bad example, let's work on writing a good prompt. We'll do so by playing Ready, Steady, Cook using ChatGPT as Team Green Pepper and Claude as Team Red Tomato. Thumbs up if you remember Ready, Steady, Cook. I was there for the Ainsley Harriet years. But before we become too nostalgic here, let's see what we have in our grocery bags. Well, instead of grocery bags, we use an image of a fridge here. Think of that as your research data. As a first step, we'll do exactly what I've just told you not to do. We'll use a vague prompt. In this example, this is a picture of my fridge. Tell me what I can make for dinner. The AI is going to miss loads of information. It doesn't know what you fancy for dinner, does not know if you have any dietary restrictions. Is it just you? Are you cooking for other people? Are you skill cooked? Or is you go to a bowl of cereal? How much time do you have? All of this information is missing, but the AI will give you an answer anyway, but you will have to guess. Right. The picture on the right is the actual picture I uploaded into ChatGPT and used this vague prompt. The response that I got here starts off with flattery, by telling me how well my fridge is stocked. Then it gives me a list of 5 options and ends with a question for me to prompt me where to go next. This is a very standard format, nothing inherently wrong. Maybe you fancy a fruit plate with yogurt and nuts for dinner. Wouldn't be my first choice. As a little spoiler, both ChatGPT and Claude think there are eggs in the bottom right here. This is why it suggests an omelette. That is AI misreading your data, essentially. And this can and will happen. And when we start building prompts, we'll try to tackle that as well. It does speak in American, Lynn, because I didn't do anything else. You will see later on switches because I often go with, you can prompt it to write in UK English as well, but US American is the default. Right, here's the Claude response. And just like ChatGPT, Claude provides a reasonable response, but notice how different they are in tone, detail, and also in approach. ChatGPT gives you a structured list of options, straightforward descriptions, and Claude offers more conversational, bit richer language, more creative suggestions. Both give you a solid selection of options, but neither give you exactly what you need. So, what happens if we give the model a better prompt? Let's find out. This is one I prepared earlier, and it's quite different. Now ChatGPT gives me an analysis of a fridge, content. It has a structured recipe. It's got cooking times. It's got ingredient spotlight. It also got a waste reduction tip. And here it suggests me I have a warm roasted vegetable mushroom salad. Claude's response looks exactly the same, but is quite different again. So this one's going with a Mediterranean vegetable frittata with roasted rainbow peppers. So, but they both look similar in how they're presenting kind of their output to me. Both responses are now actionable. I know what to do. And this is really just down to how I've changed how I've written the prompt. And I'll show you now step by step how I built the prompt to arrive at these outputs. Right. The prompt I wrote was based on this structure: goal, role, context, instructions, constraints, goals, and output format. Think of this like writing a briefing doc or a spec document for AI. I use this blueprint for all of my prompts, particularly prompts that I use regularly or where it involves complex tasks. These are the minimum amounts of fields that I use in my prompts. I don't skip any of these, but I add to them. For example, to pick up Lynn's earlier point, I can specify that I want the writing style to be UK English. I don't want any of the emoji malarkey. You know, you can put that all in additionally, but these are kind of the foundations that I use them. Okay. And we're now going to go through each field individually. So the role is where you define the persona your AI should adopt. This is not just for fun. This is where you shape the tone, style, vocabulary, and problem-solving approach. A market research analyst will respond differently than a creative director or data scientist. The role description activates specific knowledge domain and influences how the AI approaches the task. In our Ready, Steady, Cook example, I wrote the prompt, the role as, "You're an experienced and innovative Michelin-starred chef, known for your ability to create delicious and resourceful meals from whatever ingredients are on hand. You possess a deep understanding of flavor profiles, cooking techniques, and nutritional balance. Your ultimate goal is to inspire and empower home cooks to make the most of their ingredients." You'll notice these HTML-style pointy brackets. They're not essential. The AI will understand your prompt well without them. I prefer to write prompts this way as it helps me to clearly divide where one field ends and another starts. So this is really more for my benefit. You could just have headers that just say role, context, and so on. The context field provides all the necessary background information. It establishes the scenario, defines the scope, and highlights key inputs. Without proper context, the AI could make incorrect assumptions or generate irrelevant information. In our example, I wrote this as, "The user will provide an image of the contents of the fridge. Your task is to meticulously analyze the visible ingredients, taking into account their freshness, quantity, and variety. Based on this analysis, you will suggest the most suitable and inspiring dinner idea that maximizes the use of available ingredients, minimizes waste, and offers a delightful culinary experience. Consider dietary restrictions and preferences if explicitly stated by the user." This is not the best context description here. This was done intentionally as I wanted to create a little bit wiggle room for improvements later. If you were using this to answer a client brief, you could describe here what the study's about, who your audiences is, like age, gender, or job title, if you're doing B2B research, what methodology you'll be using, etc. So the more the AI knows, the better it will be able to help you with your task. The instructions are where you tell the AI exactly what you want it to do, step by step. You really should avoid lumping multiple actions into one sentence and instead list each action as a separate numbered step. This forces you to think about the process logically, and it makes it easier for the AI to follow. So make sure that there's a natural progression. Each step should build on the previous one, guiding the AI through the entire thought process. I won't read the entire prompt here, but you can see that I first ask it for an analysis, then the suggestions, then the recipe outline, then a rationale for the suggested dish, an ingredient spotlines, optional variations and additions, and a waste reduction tip. This is like a to-do list for the AI, but also forces it to show its workings. The first step here is the image analysis. Replace image with any other type of data you have and use the step to make sure that the AI has correctly understood it. This does not stop things from going wrong, but it gives you the opportunity to spot them when they do. Here's a little example of why this step-by-step approach matters, especially for more complex tasks. I have a little exercise for you. On a farm with chickens and cows, together they have 40 heads and 120 legs. How many chickens and how many cows are there? Now, some of you clever clocks may immediately know the answers, but if you're like me, you may need a piece of paper and a pencil to work this out. And if you've worked it out, you can put this in the chat. This is why chain of thought prompting is essential. Instead of asking for the final answer directly, you guide the AI through logical progression. Breaking the task into smaller steps helps the model self-correct and produces more accurate results. If we borrow loosely from Daniel Kahneman's concept of fast and slow thinking, if your prompt is simple or vague, you'll get a system one response. Fast, often plausible, but potentially generic or prone to hallucinations. By asking for step-by-step reasoning, it slows down its prediction. I mean, slows down in inverted commas, leading to more accurate, relevant, and robust outputs, even if it's internally just predicting tokens. I've seen people do this as a now take a deep breath step to signal the AI to slow down. And Jane, you're absolutely correct. The next field in our prompts are constraints. AI is not self-aware. You must tell it what not to do because it doesn't know better. These constraints act as guardrails, preventing irrelevant information, overly long responses, or undesirable content. Here I prompt, limit your primary dinner suggestions to one complete meal. All suggested ingredients for the primary meal must be visibly present or reasonably inferred as common pantry staples. For example, salt, pepper, cooking oil. Do not suggest going to the grocery store. Keep the recipe outline concise and easy to follow. Avoid overly complex or lengthy instructions. Maintain a helpful, encouraging, and slightly authoritative tone, reflecting your role as a chef. If the image is unclear or ingredients are indistinguishable, politely ask for clearer image or list of ingredients. While instructions tell the AI not what to do, goals explain why. This helps the model understand your intent and can lead to more insightful responses that go beyond just following instructions. In our example, I wrote this to provide the user with a practical, delicious, and inspiring dinner solution based on their current fridge contents to help users reduce food waste by utilizing existing ingredients creatively, to showcase your culinary expertise and ability to innovate with limited resources. By outlining the endpoint, this then allows the AI to work backwards as to how to get there. So our last field is the output format. This specifies exactly how you want the response structured. This is the reason why both the ChatGPT and the Claude output in our example look the same. Specifying the output format ensures consistency, improves readability, and is essential if you're planning to use the output to match any documents, reports, or presentations that you may be working on. You can structure it in a way that works for you. And it also minimizes what I call chatty output by preventing the AI from adding conversational filler outside of the specified structure. And here you can see why the two outputs looked so similar, because I gave it an exact structure to follow. So here's again the prompt blueprint we have just gone through, and the 6 fields: role, context, instructions, constraints, goals, and output format. Another powerful technique is few-shot prompting, which is essentially uploading one or more examples of input-output pairs before giving your actual task. LLMs are fundamentally pattern matchers, so showing them this is how I expect you to handle this type of input is often more effective than lengthy descriptions. It's showing it which pattern to follow. This can include samples of writing style, your own, your clients, a discussion guide, a questionnaire, a report, and saying kind of replicate this style. Effective prompt design is rarely perfect on the first attempt. It's an iterative process. Design, test, evaluate, refine, repeat. Did it do what I asked? Did it adhere to the role, instructions, constraints? How good was the output? Think of AI responses that aren't ideal as bugs in your prompt rather than failures of the AI. AI can be extremely literal, so even minor tweaks to wording can significantly change the output. I had a prompt where I got very kind of salesy marketing language in the output, and I actually asked the AI why this happened, and it told me because I had specified that I was going to use this to promote my business, and that alone was enough to dictate the tone. That also means that if you don't know why something happens, ask the AI. Ask the AI why it happens, how you can fix it. In our Ready, Steady, Cook example, we got warm salad from ChatGPT and a vegetable frittata from Claude. Now, what if we're not happy with this? How do we follow up? Here's how not to do it. Not quite right, make it better, add more healthy stuff, also give me like 5 more dinner ideas that are super easy, and make sure they all use everything in the fridge, but don't make it complicated, just fix it. That is vague, contradictory, lack structure. If someone was shouting this at me, I wouldn't know what to do, so neither will the AI, although I'm sure we all had clients who gave us feedback like this, so we all know how that feels like. Again, it will give you an output, but it will not be better. Here's how I wrote a better follow-up. I started off with positive reinforcement. Great suggestions. This just signals to the AI that we're on the right track. You could also signal the opposite to stop the AI from going down a path that is not helpful. Then I was specific about dietary restriction, making it vegan, food preferences, cooking methods that I'd have time for, plus a reminder of the output format. And all of this translates into feedback that the AI can actually make. And we see that in our new output, it still looks the same because it's still following the prompt with the specified output format. But you can see the peppers are now removed. We now saute the vegetables instead of roasting them. This dish was already vegan, so there are not really any more changes. But the Claude recipe has now changed from a frittata to a stir fry. Now, the eagle-eyed among you may have spotted that we have some hallucinated tofu here. The dinner suggestion now includes crispy tofu crumbles, but we do not have any tofu in the fridge, and the recipe does not have any tofu listed in the ingredients or the instructions. I wanted to leave this in to show that despite all the improvements we've made to the prompt, this can still happen. What I think happened here is that I started with a very small data set, the contents of the fridge, then reduced it by removing it further, removing peppers, making it vegan. So I'm pushing the AI down a path where it may not have enough training data and the hallucinations kick in. I think just adding the word vegan essentially predicted the word tofu. As you begin implementing these techniques in your own prompt design, remember that this is an iterative process. Start by identifying your needs, write your initial prompt using the prompt blueprint, test it, evaluate the results against your goals, refine based on what you learn, and retest. Over time, this helps you learn as well what works and what doesn't. And here are 3 things I learned the hard way. If you don't have time to write a fancy prompt, get an LLM to write it for you. An AI knows how an AI works. Personally, I often use Gemini for this. I give the context and then just the blueprint fields and let Gemini do the rest. This doesn't guarantee a perfect prompt, but it's often a really solid starting point, and I get a prompt in no time. Another thing to watch out is for token fatigue. Without getting technical here, this can happen when, due to length constraints. I found that it tends to happen once you get far into the chat and suddenly you notice that it no longer follows instructions or constrained. It brings back things you've already told it not to do. And when that happens, just start a new chat. And that's also why it's helpful to have a prompt library. Save the prompts you write, particularly if they're tasks that you regularly need support with. This can be a folder with Word documents, a Google Sheet, a fancy database, whatever works for you. Right. We've covered quite a lot of ground today, from understanding how large language models work and to actually winning Ready, Steady, Cook. I just thank you very much for your attention and your engagement. Hopefully you see prompting not as magic, but as something you can learn. And I would love to open this up for questions now.
Yes, if you all want to unmute yourselves and have a discussion or ask some questions of Ramona, that was absolutely fascinating. I'm definitely off to photograph my fridge after this.
Judith.
Hi, yeah, thank you. That was really good. It's good to be able to think in such a structured way about prompting. My question is, there's a lot of work obviously that's going into putting a really good prompt together. At what point does it sort of cross over into actually the amount of work I'm doing, I've kind of got to the answer myself without actually using the LLM? Where does the value stop coming back to you from actually using it?
So I heard this someone describe it's like you use it for the process, not for the content, for the output. Yeah. So it's a learning curve. So I stopped using it to just produce the full output, because I very quickly realized you're just not going to get there. There's nothing, you can't write a prompt that will just give you exactly the thing that you need. So even if you say, this is my writing style, this is what I've done before, this is what how the client likes to approach this, you're just not going to get there. But you can have prompts that help you with digesting the information, picking out things, structuring the information. Think about where do you need that pattern recognition? Where is it great? It's great at the analysis. So rather than kind of a knowledge worker. But if you think about it, I know that in e-groups and in discussions, people just see it's like just like a junior researcher. But think about if you just have a team of researchers and you just ask the AI to do different tasks for you in different prompts, rather than packing everything into just one task and going through it and seeing where it can actually helpful. Because when it stops being helpful, then I stop using it and then going, I'm just going to use it for a different step. rather than this one. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think there's no, I can 100% agree with you that it's not for final outputs
No.
at all, ever. And yeah, I think there's what this is proving is that there's no substitute for actually doing the work, and even if that's the work in doing the prompting.
Yeah, but you know, it can help you along the way of just identifying bits and pieces, and maybe just sometimes I just get very stuck in my own thing, and it's like, what am I missing here? Or I sometimes even get stuck on wording because I'm German and very direct and saying, how can I say this in a nicer, polite way? And just one thing, oh no, I just wrote it down as I'm looking here. Somebody says, I usually ask AI to give me 3 options: a safe one, a brave one, and an unhinged one. And the unhinged one is usually where the creative part is. And that is, I just thought it's a nice
idea.
Way.
Yeah, I like that. That's a nice idea. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
So Liz, do you want to ask your question that you've put on the chat? And then Matt. Are you there, Liz?
Yeah, sorry, just firing everything up. Yeah, my quick question was, few shots.
Yeah.
Can you give us some examples? You gave us a very intriguing sort of photo booth set of images, but how would you use few shots? Well, you told us how you would use them, but can you show us an example of a few shot?
This could be very much examples of your writing. So it was saying, this is usually the tone in what I write in, my style. This could be one way of just saying, here's a couple of things. I'm a quant researcher, so an example I could give you is about questionnaire design, and this is how I usually structure my questions. This is how I structure my lists. Whatever you feel comfortable also uploading into an AI as an output. If it is a client work that has not been made public, you probably don't want to upload it, but if it's a report that's openly available, you just think this is how the client usually likes to present their data and their findings. So if you're just saying, because it is so good at identifying patterns, you will see, oh, okay, this is how you like to work. It doesn't go with the average that it's got from all the other data that it has available, but it just goes, okay, I'm taking the average from these documents of what is usually done there. So it's like a mini training data set that you're giving the AI.
Lovely. Thank you very much. It's been really good.
Matt?
Hi. So firstly, thanks, Ramona. That was very interesting and helpful. I've got a question which is sort of a slight aside in that, and this is something I've just sort of experimented with, which is image recognition. So I know that's not the focus of what we're talking about today and what most of us are using AI for, but I wondered if you'd used AI at all for any sort of image recognition and any experience of that.
I haven't done it myself because I don't work so much with images, but I know that Ray Pointer has fairly recently also posted something about that, where he gave the AI an image, and it was some clothes hanging up a washing line. And he just wanted to know, it's like, can you tell me about where this photo was taken and about who took the photo? And the AI did identify that this was taken in Japan, because this is a clothes hanger that you get from a 100 yen store, and these rails, this curtain rails, this is what you typically see in Japan. So it gave reasoning for it and said, it still misidentified some things, but it is that, oh, this person is a runner because of what hangs up there. So I would check. Ray regularly writes about AI stuff as well. So you might find more there than I can tell you.
Thank you. Yeah, I do follow Ray, so I'll have a look at some of his posts. Thanks.
Welcome.
Dawn, do you want to ask your question from the chat?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Ramona, that was awesome. Thank you so much. I love the the presentation style and everything.
Thank you.
My question is quite a simple one, actually, but it's just more about subscribing. I don't subscribe. I flit around in between the different options. Would you recommend maybe sticking with one or two, and so that it can build up a history and understanding of your style, the type of requests, and so on?
I don't subscribe to any either. This is also a decision you need to make. And it's like, can you make that investment yourself? For me, it's also the models change so much and so rapidly. It's kind of every rollout of an update of ChatGPT or Claude gives you different outputs. And for me, this changes so much anyhow. Now, you can, on ChatGPT, you can switch on the memory and it will remember all information from the chats you have. I have that switched on, and it sometimes gave me, again, prompts where output where I didn't understand what was doing it, but because I had at one point worked on my CV with ChatGPT and put in that I was part of DEI groups before, it gave me it positioned having like great DEI expertise, because that was stuck in the memory. So it can work for you and can work against you. But this is also information you can just have ready in the context section of your prompt, wherever that is relevant. Yeah, of saying, if you're doing something on I have some prompts that help me with like, how do I business development using LinkedIn. Yeah, so I tell it about my business in the context section so that I don't need to write it out every single time. Yeah, your prompts can be really long. Yeah, there's also things, now these are paid versions in ChatGPT where you can write a GPT for yourself. Yeah, that has this, but you need to subscribe to it. But I found that on Gemini, and then they're called gems, you can get them for free. And if you have like repetitive tasks where you don't want to write a prompt every single time or reuse a prompt, you can use that. I think it's quite worth, at this point, for me at least, just trying them out, seeing where they're different. Or because for a while I wasn't using Gemini at all because I just didn't like the output it gave me. And then I tried it again after a while, and now it's one of my favorite ones to use. But you also have things like this week there was a GPT outage. Like nobody could, or few people could actually get into ChatGPT. And in that case, you have a backup. No, you know how to use other systems. But it's really down to you if you want to make that investment.
Thank you. That was great. And I think the prompts and the emphasis that you put in the prompts today has been massively helpful.
Great.
And yeah, I hadn't even considered that before. So thank you.
Talking of Gemini, Robert, you've got a question if you're still there. You want to ask it?
Yeah, I was just interested in being completely lazy, having the LMM do everything and do my prompt as well. But you mentioned it briefly, and you talked about there was a word you used. It wasn't that you give it something, some fields and stuff, and off it goes. But I'd be interested in knowing a little bit more.
Yeah, so I said, for me, it's just my go-to is Gemini because I found that it writes good prompts for me. So I go into Gemini, and to pick up on Dawn's example, I just go, hey, I want to have essentially an advisor to help me with business development on LinkedIn. And that's maybe all I write at this point. And it's like, I want to help me write a prompt for this type of advisor. And I want you to create a prompt that has these 6 fields. That's all I do. And then I let, and it does write really long structured prompts. And then you review the prompt, and then it's just tweaking. But you don't need to start with so much of like coming up with everything yourself. And sometimes it is also kind of, oh, I didn't even think of putting that in. Sometimes it's easier to just tweak something than coming up from scratch.
And so when you say fields, what give me an example of a field?
Oh, the one that we've just went through, kind of, it writes the role, the context, the instructions and constraints and so on.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a question, Ramona.
Sure.
And it's probably stupid, really. When I get a project in, obviously I get a screener from my client, and I spend ages rewriting it in Google Forms so I can send it out. Can I use AI to do any of that for me? And if so, how would I do it?
I don't know, to be honest, because I've not used Google Forms that much to just see how is there a way of quickly bringing it into? Is it about reformatting it?
Yeah, reformatting and writing some of the questions slightly differently. I mean, is there a way of me training something to say this is a screener, this is a Google form? Now, you know,
it might not connect with Google Form, but if you just need to reformat it to take some of the headers or something out, if you're doing that pair of saying, here's a previous one of where this is what I got from the client, and this is what I then actually put into Google Form, and seeing if can you reformat now this new document. But again, do it in 2 steps, saying this is the previous example, and a step 2, kind of learn that, and now do it with a new document and put it into format 2.
Okay, thank you very much.
See how it works and then refine it as you go along. Who knows?
Yep. Okay, any last questions for Ramona before we finish? No? Okay, well, look, it's been amazing. I've loved it, and I think everybody else has. We had 31 people, which is pretty good for a Friday morning. As I say, this will be up on the website at some stage next week. Now, Ramona, you did kindly say you might do another session. I'm guessing from the interest we've had that might be quite popular. So maybe you and I could arrange something.
Yeah, absolutely.
If everybody else would be interested, and I think they will. Okay, well, we'll talk offline about that. Okay. All right, well, have a lovely weekend, everybody. And thank you so much for giving up your time this morning. And Ramona, thank you for a brilliant presentation.
Thank you for coming out. It was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.